Great, so welcome to Cat Conversations number 5, I believe. And today we have with us Jemima House, who has very kindly come down from Bath, rather than Bath, because it hasn't got an R in it. And today we literally have no idea what we're going to talk about, do we?
It's the most fun way.
So we've been connected for, I don't know, probably 3, 4, maybe even 5 years now.
Yeah.
And in very similar fields like tantra, yoga, self-development. And so, yeah, we're just going to wing it. We're going to see what happens.
I'm excited.
I'm excited. I'm really pleased that you could make it down. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, really pleased to be here.
Good.
It's great. Yeah.
So let's start with a little bit of background. Who is Jemima House?
Okay. So, I was actually brought up in a very religious household from when I was born, and that had a huge effect on me, and which I think has been a formative, very formative part of my journey and how I've come to be doing the things that I'm doing now. A lot of embodiment stuff.
What denomination or whatever?
Fundamental Christian.
Right.
Kind of style, yeah.
Hardcore Christian.
Yeah, yeah. And a very loving family as well, but also a lot of very interesting ideas about how life ought to be approached, and which parts of me were acceptable and which parts of me were not acceptable. And that was very difficult to deal with, and I decided I didn't want to do that when I was, I think, probably about 12. But I didn't really have much choice. I had to do it until I left home.
Right.
So...
And by do it, what, go to church?
Yeah, go and do all that stuff and go knocking on people's doors and...
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Like quite even evangelical as well then.
Yeah. So that was really huge for me. That was a huge thing that I didn't realise almost the impact of until I moved away from it. And then I moved away, I went to university, studied fine art, photography, and just had a ball, really.
Right.
Just had a lot of fun,
Yeah.
met lots of friends and enjoyed myself. Yeah, I have 2 children now, which happened not long after I finished university. And I kind of pootled around in motherhood and in... helping to build up a family business so that we could support the family, and it was really only when my son was born that I was shown that I needed to take a different path. I always call him my teacher.
Right.
He's 15 now, but when he was born it was very, very difficult for lots of different health reasons, etc., his health reasons.
Right.
And it just made me look at things in a different way, made me look at my diet, made me look at how I was approaching being a parent, and made me question a lot of things that I had just been unconsciously sort of going along with in a way that I had been taught. So that led me to go and do lots of different kinds of training and open up my own self-development. I'm NLP qualified, I'm a yoga teacher. Done lots of research into all the other kind of Eastern traditions, like Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, psychology. It's obviously not Eastern, but yeah, I tried to fix everything together. I tried to kind of get a new understanding of what was going on in order for it to feel better.
Right.
And I think that was my main driver. It's like, this isn't working. He's miserable. I'm miserable because I feel like I'm not being a good parent. So how can I make that work better?
Right.
So yeah, that was the beginning, really. I qualified as a yoga teacher in 2011.
Right.
But he was born in 2003, so I've been kind of doing this stuff for a while. And,
Yeah.
Although I've been practicing yoga for 20 years, but it didn't really kind of kick in,
Yes.
until it got really, really personal.
Right.
Which is often the way. Yeah.
So maybe talk a bit more about that yoga aspect of it and how it was something you were doing in your life beforehand, but what was it about this key moment that shifted it, and what did it shift into?
Well, I knew that physically it was very good for me to practice yoga.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that the effect of it on my nervous system and on my body was great,
mm-hmm.
and I really enjoyed that. Didn't quite realise or understand the depth of it as a system.
Mm-hmm.
So the eightfold path of yoga, and how it's really is a whole map of how to navigate your human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose to have a baby and a child that I'd already had one child, and I kind of thought, oh, I know what I'm doing, and then to be completely thrown and go, I don't know what I'm doing at all, then I was a lot more open. I was a lot more open to more learning, and that's what I did, because I'm an avid researcher,
right,
and an avid kind of fact collector, and I like sifting through information, seeing what sits right and seeing what doesn't. So that's what I did, really, and just went on this whole mad mission of learning stuff.
It sounds great.
Yeah.
It really, like, I can see a lot of mirrors to my own path through life as well, having this kind of period of thinking, yeah, I've got it all sussed, it's all fine, and then like, I don't know anything.
Yeah, I think, that's it.
Yeah.
That's a pivotal moment,
Yes.
where you just give in and go, okay, I know nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that'll be the title of this podcast, I Know Nothing.
Yeah.
And how that's impacted our lives.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so shall we skip right to the present? Do you want to talk a little bit about projects that you're involved in right now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I finished my first book in June this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, that was very, very satisfying to actually get it finished.
We need the title straight away.
It's called Magic and Ordinaryness.
Magic and Ordinaryness.
Yeah, and it's really it's a nod to the yogic path, really, that it exposes the magic of us. It exposes our spirituality, our divinity, but actually the rest of it's very ordinary. We're human, everyone's the same, we all have the same problems, we all have the same characteristics and traits in different measures, and it's this beautiful combination of both, and being able to accept that both run alongside each other, that helps us. I also go into communication quite deeply in there as well, relationships, because that's been really key to me as well. I've felt that as I have improved my communication skills, conscious communication is really, really important to me, because I can see how much pain it causes when people are unconscious in their communication, or they get triggered and they're just a reactionary to each other.
Yeah.
You know, it just doesn't work. So that's sort of knitted in to the Eightfold Path description and, you know, elaborate explanation, if you like, of it, because that's very close to my heart. So that's the book, Magic and Ordinaryness. Modern day yoga wisdom for better connections. That's the tag. I nearly forgot that. Yeah.
Maybe let's drill down into the communication aspect of it, because something that I've been involved with for the last 6 months plus is non-violent communication. And we've got a group here in Totnes that are currently going through the workbook month by month, a different chapter each month, and so it's an amazing journey of discovery and learning just how much of our thoughts is what I'm noticing most. Obviously speech as well, but how much of our thoughts are violent towards ourselves or other people. Maybe talk a little bit about your journey through conscious communication and maybe what that means to you, first of all.
Okay. It's a bit of a challenge to try and encapsulate what it means. I feel that as I was growing up, and the environment I was in was not conducive to open communication. So there was a lot of shut down a lot of passive-aggressive tendencies and just this sort of simmering stuff going on. And I suppose I never really understood why it felt so uncomfortable, because it's a lack of honesty. And maybe if I had to encapsulate it, I would say it's about honesty. It's about your truth. It's about being as honest as you can in the moment with kindness toward the other person. I think that's probably it. And that's so important to me, because it's so easy to hurt people unintentionally. And the more attention we do pay to how we communicate, then the more chance we've got of having harmony between ourselves. And then we can just get stuff done quicker, like more fun stuff done quicker. More fun stuff without arguing and, you know, having disagreements. So well, not so much not having disagreements, but being able to navigate your way through them. Exactly. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, being willing and able to repair when disagreements happen. So that's key as well. So if you're not willing, then you'll just end up just chopping off all these routes to communication, because we're human and we mess up. So being willing and able to repair and finding out the best ways of doing that from experience, and really checking in with the other person, like, how did you understand that? You know, because we can get it so wrong, like so wrong. It's ridiculous how wrong we can get it. And how we often communicate in a way that doesn't actually reflect our feelings and needs and desires. That it because we're responding from a defensive place, it comes across as an attack and chaotic and angry and or whatever, rather than, this is who I am, this is what I'm feeling right now, this is what I'm needing right now, this is what I'm asking for right now. That simple message gets so like it does get all convoluted. And I've listened to a lot of Brené Brown. I really like really like her. I really rate what she says, and I do think there must be this willingness to be vulnerable if we're going to communicate properly with people. And there has to be a certain sense of safety, and I think it's our responsibility to figure out what we need to feel safe enough to communicate in an honest way. And then once we have almost like a tick list of conditions, we can start organising ourselves so that we can have those lovely moments of clarity and those real beautiful deep human connections. Because that's what everyone needs. Everyone is a human need to be surrounded and connected, and lovingly supported by others, and for us to provide that for people too.
So has there been a particular relationship or dynamic that was really uncomfortable and not moving forward in a positive way before you came across this idea of conscious communication? That has now changed into a much more dynamic, loving, expressive...
That would be a lovely story, wouldn't it?
It would.
Well, definitely had the first bit. Yeah, of course. I mean, I think any great illumination comes from a pain point most of the time. So yeah, I've definitely felt that. And it's not cut and dried, it's not neat and tidy. Like, oh, I know all this stuff now, so now it's all fixed and better. It's kind of not that simple. But in myself, I know my faults more clearly. I know the bits that my weaknesses, the bits I find hard, the bits where I fell down. And I think kind of hooking on to the conscious communication for me has also taken away that element of blame. I think it's really easy to blame and shame people when we feel hurt, because we're looking for, what did that? But if we can own what happened to a certain degree and have our equanimity, which, coming back to yoga, find your space of inner peace where you can be equanimous about what happened, and pick up the learning from it, rather than having to go into that horrible blame and shame, which really doesn't serve anybody. It just is a shutdown mechanism. Yeah, I kind of lost my thread there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. I was thinking, as you were talking just then, I was thinking about how we can bring conscious communication into schools, and wouldn't that be an amazing thing to do? And particularly in like the realm of debating societies. Like, I'm not sure that there are debating societies as much as there used to be, but just thinking, wouldn't it be great if in schools there were debating societies, that everyone was taught the fundamentals of conscious communication or non-violent communication, so that kids were equipped with the skills to really communicate clearly and to listen deeply, so that those debates were more fruitful.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's an amazing idea. I do some work in schools teaching yoga for a friend of mine, Charlotte Martinez, who runs teen yoga.
Right.
She's absolutely brilliant. She's a real force and has managed to... She has an all-party parliamentary group that is talking about putting yoga into education.
Right.
So I'm quite familiar with going into groups and teaching them from the very beginning, the foundation, if you like, because until you know how to listen to your own body and listen to yourself, then it's very, very like an alien idea to think about how someone else might feel. In order to have empathy, we need to first have empathy with ourselves.
Yeah.
So I do touch on that in the teaching I do in schools, which is really interesting.
Right.
And they take to it so quickly.
Yeah.
So quickly. And you would think, you know, there's this whole gang of like naughty 11-year-olds who... The teachers are just mesmerised by it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, tell us a good story about that.
Okay, so I went into a school near Coventry, quite a rough area, and it was years, I think 7 and 8, so like 11 and 12 age, and did the first session with them, had a bit of a laugh with them, and actually managed to get them to do relaxation at the end for almost 5 minutes.
Wow.
And then the teacher came up to me at the very end and said, I don't know what you just did. And I said, well, this is just... You know, this is yoga, this is how it works. And he said, well, I didn't have a chance to tell you before you started the session, but all of these children they've been selected to be in this group because they have special educational needs.
Right.
And so they are either they either have a diagnosis of ADHD or some kind of behavioural issue, or they're in care and they're not living with their parents, or they're from very difficult home backgrounds. So I had about 14 of these children in a group, and and children are just children, you know?
Yes.
And I'm so pleased he didn't tell me, really, but he was just so shocked of the power of the practice, because not me, you know, I'm facilitating it.
Yeah.
But it's the practice, it's how you're using your body and your mind together and actually unlocking your spirit, and it was just really, it's beautiful to see them transform.
What did you do in that class?
Restorative yoga, that's what I do. So
what does that look like?
Well,
sound like?
I guess it's kind of intuitive movement with the body, lots of attention to the breath, and what else? Just providing space. I think I was talking to someone this morning on a coaching call about how to hold space for someone allows them to have their process. So you give them permission to take their time and have their process, so that they can get rid of any residue. So these kids come in and they've had an argument with their best mate, or someone's bullying them, which happens, you know, and you just allow them to process that. You allow it to come out of the body, because when we don't process it, it just gets pushed down and just becomes illness, or becomes little tics and weird things, you know, that kids do.
It comes out in some way.
It does come out. So yeah, to be able to hold that space for them and then help them, just show them how they can, give them options for like, you just need to move your body. Just move your body and just get this energy out and let it come through. And then what's underneath is this lovely, pure, joyful kind of happy to be alive energy.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and that process is the same for adults or children or for anyone. That's how I see yoga. It's like getting rid of the residue and just allowing what is naturally underneath to bubble up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Wow, what amazing work to be doing in the world.
I know, it's so good. It's so good.
Cool. Okay. So maybe let's go back to your book briefly and talk about the inspiration behind that. Is it that you were so enamoured with the change that yoga had in your life that you wanted to pass that on and help other people find that shift?
It's funny with that book because it was actually almost 4 years in the making,
Right.
and it began as an observation on the disconnection that seems to be rife in the world.
I mean, the
And-
mind-body disconnection?
That
or
too,
between
but
people?
also between people really, and technology, and how we're screen heads, and it began like that. And I was, because of research again, and I was just like, okay, let me find out all about this and how long it's been going on. I mean, I remember doing having lectures at uni about the internet. Like, that's how old I am.
Yeah, me too. I remember.
Oh, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Okay. Yeah, so it was going to be about that, and it was going to then bring in yoga, and yoga as a salve really to that disconnection.
Right.
And as this lovely personal practice that can ripple out so that we can have strong communities. But that was too complex. And I decided where it was going to just go forever and ever, and I kind of lost the thread about halfway through. And then when I picked it up again, I really tuned into what was the most important aspect for me, and for me it was connection, and that's inner and outer. And the simplest way that I could lay it out was to go into the detail of the Eightfold Path and go, okay, lots of people at the moment still think yoga is just moving your body and breathing. So let's bring in these other aspects. Let's bring in the yamas and niyamas, the observances of yoga.
What about?
They're kind of maybe rules of, observances is a better word, I think. So cleanliness, in all ways, so clean eating or clean thinking or clean communication. There's so many ways that so many directions you can take when you start to look into the richness that is there. And I wish I had a copy with me so it could jog my memory, but I don't, so we don't. But yeah, it's a really amazing exploration, and it just touched the surface really, but I felt like it had to come out of me, and it's been my bringing together the parts of myself that I felt were disparate has been maybe my biggest learning, just the inner connection, and how much availability that then gives me to be connected up, to help other people, and to be honest, to have honest, open communication and connections with others that are much deeper. So I don't feel like I'm constantly trying to protect myself in case they find out that I'm faking it, or that's really where it came from. But it's quite a short book, but I'm always writing, so there'll be more.
Yeah, it sounds like there's more. If you haven't touched on the community bit in particular, it sounds like that's an obvious next step.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's all kinds of things in the pipeline, definitely.
Tell us more about what's in the pipeline then.
Well, I'm partway through writing a book for women, which is called the Juicy Body Program. So this is again part of my experience when Isaac was small, and I decided that we need to try something else because he was allergic to dairy, and he got sick with lots of things that he ate. So I started looking into food as medicine, and I've lived that way since he was really small, so probably for about 12 or 13 years. And there's things that I do that people don't know about, even though I assume that they just do, because everyone must know that, and people don't. So I thought, maybe I should share this as well, because it's a very simple way of preventing illness, to do juicing and smoothies and just get get your boost of nutrients that you need without having to feel like you're going on a diet or that you're spending millions of pounds on supplements. So there's that, and then the other aspect of that book is actually coming into your womanliness. What does that mean to you? Again, this idea of being connected up, but deeply in your feminine, and how do you understand that, and what can you do to access that on a daily basis? It's kind of built around having your own personal ritual every morning that connects you back up to who you really are, so that so much stuff is easier. You have less decision making, you start to become clearer in how you communicate.
How do you have less decision making?
Because you are maybe not less decision making, but less kind of vacillating between. Is it yes, is it no? Because you just know.
Right.
So when you're really tuned in, you're just like, I know the answer to that. Because you know who you really are. You know if that is a yes for you or a no for you. But I think from experiences, many people don't understand that as a physical sensation. What does yes feel like? What does no feel like?
Right.
Even something really as quite fundamental as that needs practice. It all needs practice so that we can, slip into it and work from this place of feeling empowered rather than feeling at a loss or feeling a bit like, I don't know which direction to take.
Or blown around by circumstance.
Yeah.
I think that's been the biggest one for me. Feeling like I'm holding the rudder of my ship rather than in this ship in a crazy storm, like being chucked around going, now I've got to deal with this, now I've got to deal with that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is like having a safety rope or having your hand on something that you know is your guide, and that's internal. And however you understand that, whether you talk about God or the divine or the universe, it is when our channel is clear. That's what we're channeling. So that it's like, wow, there's all this stuff in here if you just know how to access it and just be a little bit. I can't think of the word.
Intuitive?
No, like to do it no matter what.
Right, or disciplined.
Yeah, maybe a little bit disciplined.
Yeah.
Just because it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it.
And then feeling whatever comes through, be that clarity or decision making or art or music or inspiration or whatever, just allowing that to pass through you naturally, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, the natural outcome of all of this is creativity. And that just is. The creative urge, obviously for women, our initial creative urge is to birth actual human beings.
Yeah.
But if that's done or that's not to be done, then creativity, creating things of beauty, things of art, things of awe and wonder, I think that is really natural. That's kind of part of our expression of being living beings. Even if it's your life as a work of art.
Yes. Yeah.
Whatever, however you want to see it, I still think that is the natural outcome of keeping a clear channel and being disciplined about your practice so that you can then be free.
Yes.
Because it does take a certain amount of discipline to be free.
Absolutely. Oh, that's such a big piece of learning for me at the moment, because I've always been about freedom. Like, every aspect of freedom I'll take to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And just recently I've been putting in some structure and some focus in place, and found that bizarrely, where I anticipated I would feel hemmed in and restricted, I actually feel freer than I did before. And it's like, wow, if only I'd known that 20 years ago.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing, isn't it?
But yeah, I guess we come to this learning when we're ready. Eh?
Yeah, we do. It's like the banks of the river, isn't it? The banks allow it to get deeper and to flow.
Yes. Yeah.
So where we can have these small practices that keep us straight I really feel for myself, it stops me driving myself mad.
Yes.
Because I'm such a thinker, and I could get obsessive about my thinking, and my mind will just take me somewhere if I don't come back into my body, come and do my practice, and really commit to going, okay, I know what's going on here, let's just sit back a bit, let's just observe what's happening, come back into the sensations of the body, come back into that healing space of acceptance, and then see what you think is real.
Right,
because often, you know, it's chalk and cheese. It's just like black and white.
Yeah, we can go off onto crazy fantasies about reality, and then, checking in, we find it's all quite simple, really.
Yeah, not easy, but simple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't that one of life's great paradoxes?
Yeah.
If that's even a word. Paradoxes? Paradoxi?
I think it's a word.
The more simple it is, like the more true it's likely to be, but the harder it is to do, to implement, to live. Yeah. That's what I've found.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that.
Yeah. Bugger that simplicity.
Yeah.
Cool. So, I don't know what to ask you next. I guess I was thinking about masculine and feminine just then, when you were talking about the banks of the river and the river flowing, and that it flows deeper when the banks are there. And I've heard someone else, I think it might have been John Cooper in the last Cat Conversations we had, talking about the masculine as the banks of the river and the feminine as the river flowing through. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, just that I noticed that parallel. So maybe his masculine and feminine, riverbanks and river, can be laid upon your structure, like the structure holding your discipline around doing the practice, and the river being the feminine flow of what comes out of the practice. You could see it like that. I mean, the Shakti energy, I don't think it will be held, but I also feel that we are living in human bodies in a 3D world. There are a lot of distractions, and I think it's necessary to have this practice. But it's interesting that you should bring that up, because over the last probably 6 months, I've, as well as connection and community, in between those two things, I've hooked into the harmony between male and female, between men and women. Right. Because to me that feels really important as well. There's just so much happening at the moment.
Isn't there?
So much.
Yeah. And I'm not an intellectual, I'm not an academic, so I feel slightly at a loss when I try and talk about it, but I'm very interested in the discussion that's going on. Ever since really the Trump's inauguration and Me Too. Yeah. Since then, I wrote a piece when the women's marches were on. It just felt really, really important. Felt like just loads of women were just standing up and going, actually, we're not happy about this. But it's peaceful, but we're not happy. Yeah. And now with this, in the last week, the Senate hearing and all of that stuff that's gone on, it's had the same kind of quality. I felt this, I know social media is a bubble. I know I'm surrounded by people who think like me because that's who I chose to be in my bubble. I get that. Yeah. But I also see in the media, and I see in the kind of satirical commentary that goes on with it, I see it's powerful. Yes. It's powerful. Yeah. That women are kind of going, this is not okay. But I'm really really aware also that it's a sensitive time, and it's a really sensitive time for the masculine. And I don't know how to put this, but I feel almost this sense of wanting to care for them in their confusion about what is actually going on right now, because this is a massive change. It's a massive sea change. We've had like 5,000 years of patriarchy, and now all these changes are happening. Yeah. And I think it's unsettling, to say the very least, And I don't think anyone needs any sort of vehement feminists diatribe that is anti-men, that's to me not the answer. That's the opposite of the answer.
Yes.
I think that we need to learn each other's ways and learn how to be with each other again as if we were starting from the very beginning. That's part of my mission as well, I suppose.
Yeah, to have that childlike curiosity about each other.
Yeah, like you're a guy. What is this like for you? What's going on? And you know, in that honesty and in the knowing of myself very well now, then hopefully that is, like you were saying earlier, a permission slip.
Yes.
I think that's Jamie Catto's thing, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, I know you'd like a mention for that. Yeah, so to be the permission slip, to be the person who goes, it's okay to be honest, and it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to not know everything.
Yes.
We're all just bumbling through here. Let's try and do it together in a nice way that feels enjoyable.
That feels like the massive challenge at the moment from my perspective. Like, I remember like when I first got into Tantra and was propelled there partly by the father of my children and I splitting up, and me thinking, well, grappling with what the hell went wrong there, because that came out of the blue, you know. And I guess at the time the first person pretty much that I went to for understanding about that was David Data. And I could very clearly see that we were in what he would call a second stage relationship. So basically I was wearing the trousers and making the decisions, and he was kind of doing the yes dear thing, finding it really uncomfortable and unsatisfying, and eventually, you know. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm moving into this area of masculine and feminine, which has been, you know, a thread throughout my whole life, but what we've got to do here is pretty simple, you know. It's a fine tuning of, we need to get second stage women into their third stage feminine, we need to get second stage men into their third stage masculine. Pretty simple. And then, you know, now having seen what's happened in the last 6 months, year and a half, with this like massive bubbling up of discontent both on the side of the masculine and the feminine, and this is a bit of a tangent, but something I was quite surprised about was that I thought that the feminist movement in its broadest sense, or maybe by its oldest definition, would have been natural allies with the men's movement as that started to rise up. And to find that they're mortal enemies is quite a shock to me. It's like, whoa, the situation is a hell of a lot worse than I'd realised before. There's a lot more work to do here. You know, I thought it was just a little tweak of a nut and bolt here and there, and that's a very mechanistic kind of analogy, isn't it?
It's a whole rebuild.
It's like a whole reboot, isn't it? Like get rid of the whole system and install a new load of software, it seems to me. Yeah, no,
I agree with you, and I just think there's work to do. I think that's the only thing that we can take from that. There is work to do, and it feels important. It feels like if you know, then you need to be out there.
Yes,
you need to be out there and organising your communities and just helping where you can, and helping people come back together in this loving space, rather than wasting energy on trying to fight things that are no longer viable in this time that we're living in.
Can you give an example for that? Do you see people fighting, like losing energy in battles that don't need to be fought, or?
I slightly on a tangent again, but there was something that happened on social media where women were being requested to black out their profile picture.
Right.
In order to show men what the world would be like without women.
Right.
Now, I'm sorry, but if that's not a waste of energy, I don't know what is. And what place is that coming from? You know?
Yes.
Where does that come from? That's just like, oh, we'll show you.
Yeah.
What. And but at the same time, making yourself quiet and invisible and unseen, it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. I had a massive rant about it.
Right.
This is not the time to be invisible. It's the time to be seen.
Right.
It's the time for us to show up, keep showing up and keep connecting, even when it feels gnarly and horrible. just keep at it, you know, that's the way. That's the most recent waste of energy thing that came to my mind.
I can see the logic of it, of blacking out your faces so that it engenders some appreciation for the feminine, but yeah, I don't think there's ever been a lack of appreciation for the feminine as far as I can tell. Like, pretty consistently throughout history there's been an appreciation that's sometimes been really twisted and negative, but it's always been there. But yeah, I guess I can get the idea that, like, we'll remove ourselves so that you can... I guess it's got a feel of, what do they call it in the States? The day of absence.
Right.
Where black students would absence themselves. I'm not sure if it was just from university or universities took it on after wherever it was expressed before then, so that the white people would feel what it was like in their communities when black people weren't doing all the jobs and whatnot. Excuse me.
Right, okay.
I've got a cold, so it's not a snot-free zone here today, I'm afraid. Yeah. But yeah, it seems like it's got that kind of day of absence energy to it about we're not appreciated and we're going to show you how impactful we are actually. And I'm not sure that that's required with the masculine and feminine dynamic.
I just don't like it. I don't like where that comes from at all. Mm-hmm. And I don't see that, and maybe there's a huge trigger in this for me, but I think when I was younger, it was very much the only choice. It felt like the only choice was to sit down and be quiet rather than have a disagreement. So I do feel very strongly about this. I'm like, actually, no, speak up, show up, say what you think, and keep connecting when it feels hard. And keep repairing, you know, keep repairing the connections when they get broken.
Both inside and between people.
Yeah, definitely.
There's something in there about resilience, isn't there?
Yeah.
Fostering or cultivating resilience in yourself to deal with your own internal struggles and to keep connecting with other people in the struggles between people as well. Yeah.
And that's something that I have found really challenging actually in the last few years, because I think it requires a big zooming out. It requires taking things less personally and coming out to a broader view and going, actually, here we are on a planet, in a universe, you know, and just sort of understanding at many different levels what we're experiencing, and not getting caught up in the kind of tiny details of day to day. It feels important if we want to come at it from that point of view, that we do have this ability to zoom out and get slightly further away from the personal.
Get a little bit more perspective.
Yeah, I used to equate that with, that means that I don't care, or you don't care, but it doesn't mean that.
Okay.
That's why I felt it was very hard for me to do.
Right, yes.
Because that's what I thought. I was like, it means that I couldn't care less, or that you couldn't care less, but it doesn't mean that. It just means that you care, as well as knowing that there's a bigger perspective.
Yes, yeah. And I guess when I think about the last year and a half or so and the bigger perspective, I get a strong sense that yes, it's uncomfortable and there's a lot more to do than I realised, but that ultimately it's good that these anomalies, that this crap is being brought to the surface for us to deal with. So, like, you know, the huge positives and the huge negatives around the Me Too thing, the horror and the like, that makes sense about Trump and Brexit. You know, all these things are like bubbling up in a way that we can't ignore them anymore, and it makes me wonder how long they have been just kind of sitting under the surface, ready to bob up to the top like a turd you can't flush down.
Nice.
But grateful that we've now got the opportunity to face these things. Well, we've got no choice but to face these things head on and, as you say, connect with them, as well as connecting inside ourselves and between people, connecting with these larger issues that will create the future for our children and our children's children.
Yeah, I think it follows it seems to be almost like a universal pattern, this idea of residue coming up to be cleared away before we can then see the purity of what is underneath. It just reminds me of the retreat process of bringing people in with their intention of, you know, what do you really want? Okay, a bit tearful because I'm sad that I haven't got what I really want. And then you go into grounding and go into, okay, get into your body. Let's just take a look at reality. And then you can go from there, you can go into expansion. But you can't go straight into expansion because everyone's too scared. Everyone's just like, oh.
Too freaked out.
Yeah, so busy holding on. And I think that's maybe what, there's an element of that in what we're seeing now in stuff around us in the world. There's this element of kind of grasping on to the last vestiges of whatever the old order is, you know, whatever is going on, even however toxic it may be, people still clinging on because there's that fear of like, well, what will happen if I let go? Or what is next? What is coming next? Because, you know, we don't always know. And it's okay to not always know.
We'll make it up as we go along.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Intention is everything.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, well, my nose is feeling like now is a good time to stop.
Okay.
And take a break.
Yeah.
Have a nose blow, another cup of tea.
Okay, good.
So, you won't notice any time gone. We'll be back in a blip.
In a flash.
In a flash, yes. But for us, we'll take 5 out. See you soon. Cool. Great, so we've had our teas and our wees, and I've blown my nose about 7 times. So we're ready to go for another section. Let's see what happens here. And for this part, we were going to start off by talking about some women's retreats that Jemima wants to host next year. So let's start off with that. What was the original idea, the momentum behind wanting to offer that into the world?
Okay. I've been working with a really amazing woman actually called Kat Byles, who is a coach of sorts, and she's very intuitive and very good at holding space for people, which I find quite rare to come across. I find that I do that naturally, but for someone to do that for me feels a little bit less available. So it's really great to meet her and speak to her about what is really coming through. So what are my offerings going to be like? And that is one of my most favourite things ever in the world to do, is to hold space for people to have their transformation, to have their aha moments. So we kind of did meditations, and we went into visualizations and all kinds of very creative, a creative mental space to think about how this might be realised. So it's got to be sunshiny, it's got to be nice and warm, it's got to be in nature, and it has to be a space where the women feel that they are really taken care of. So they don't slip into what is often a very natural womanly role to take care either of each other or of the environment, you know, or tidy the kitchen, or, you know, all those things. So they can really be a distraction that just doesn't help.
Right.
Because the essence of this is to go inside,
right.
to look inside and to really see, okay, where in my life can I become more aligned with who I really am?
So nurturing that internal space in a way that we're more familiar with nurturing outside space.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, definitely. So in the way that we might provide for our child, or we might provide for a really dear friend who needs it, and that's very natural to us, to bring that inside and to start providing that for ourselves, but also to be kind of ensconced in this group who, and although we're working individually, we're also in this safe container, if you like, which is really powerful. And I did a retreat in Bulgaria a month or so ago, and that was
this woman?
No.
Right.
I mean, I co-hosted
right.
with someone, which was kind of off the cuff, but it happened, and that was a group of 6 other women.
Yeah.
And there was there was this very lovely realisation of how we help each other. And I've done a women's retreat as well in Ibiza a couple of years ago, and it was the same kind of quality. It's like when we talk about the residue that comes up to be processed, it's as if the group each take a little piece of it,
right?
So that you don't have this horrible, big, nasty, scary thing to try and chew through. Actually, you're safe in the group, and the group are all going, yeah, that's the same, you know.
Right, yeah.
And there's something in that which is just incredibly healing, and I would really, really love to create those spaces for people so that they can access that level of care, you know, that is real, is high quality level of care which allows a different kind of flowering to happen.
So a sense of we're all in this together and we're helping each other to move through this difficult space, difficult time.
Yeah, and I mean it's very ancient and traditional as well that groups of women get together, because we know each other. We know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be a guy. I can only go so far with my teaching to men. Because yes, we're human beings, but I don't know your experience, but I do know your experience as a woman to some degree. So let's help each other, and let's provide those natural healing spaces and help each other process the residue so that we can also uncover this magic that comes out. Because that's what it feels like. When you get truly in touch, you get your channel nice and clear, and you get in touch with what's underneath. It feels like magic. It feels like being 4 years old again.
Yes.
You know? It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really amazing. So yeah, I'm really excited about doing that next year. And it'll probably be Europe to begin with, and then maybe a bit further afield.
Right.
Yeah, exciting.
And how many?
Well, there'll be 2 next year, so I do one in the springtime and one in the autumn, early autumn.
And where can people go to find out more about that?
They can have a look on my site. There's, as soon as anything is detailed and organised, it will go on there, which is sunshineyoga.co.uk. So yeah, you can find out.
Brilliant.
Everything on there.
Good stuff. Okay. So out of that retreat that you went on, that you co-hosted last month, what kinds of transformation did you see in the women through that process?
It was very poignant actually, because there was somebody who was turning up to the retreat who'd had a cancer diagnosis,
right?
And she'd been given, I think, 4 or 5 years.
Right.
She had small children. And this was her kind of, I just need to do something. Right. Very high powered job, beautiful woman, really just, just there to kind of go, and put it all down.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go into personal details, but the transformation was so huge for her. There was so much stuff that she was carrying, so much that she managed to put down and leave in Bulgaria so that she could go home much lighter. And, we're in touch, and she's talking about how things are different in the dynamic between her and her partner and her children. And
right.
You can see the ripple effect of this kind of stuff. And I think if you prepared people, if you said to people, well, it might be a bit rough before it feels better, I don't think they'd like it so much. But, sometimes it is.
Yes.
But, what's a little cry? It's fine.
Yeah. Crying's great. Gets it all out.
Exactly. But yeah, she wasn't the only one. That I think everybody, we do an opening and a closing circle. And in the closing circle, everybody shared very rawly about their experience and how it had really touched them. And I just think that's the power of yoga, and the power of practice, and the power of women getting together and holding space for each other. It's something that's really not we really have to make those communities of women happen in our culture. It's not like there's a Red Tent or any other kind of modern day space available
automatically in order to connect in that way, is there? And I do wonder, having studied anthropology at university, whether that's a key part of moving forward as society, that those spaces for women to come together and to drop everything, to work through everything, to have a fresh bout of inspiration, if you like, to move out back into their lives full rather than depleted and empty. I see so many women, especially here in Totnes. There's a lot of single mums here who come to Totnes for that sense of community, but actually it's really difficult to create that space here where you feel supported as a single mum and to connect with other women in a really deep, profound, supportive way, so that you can fill yourself up and move forward in life. So yeah, I've kind of lost my thread there.
I do think it's important for women, but I also think it's just as important for men.
Absolutely.
I know a really good facilitator, Nick Clements, who does work with transitioning from being boys to becoming men.
Right. Yeah.
Initiation rites, things like that. He sometimes works in prisons and does a lot of work with theatre, and it seems to me that got lost somewhere, this idea that, okay, so you're going to have this period of time which is very different from anything else in your life, and maybe we take you to a forest and we leave you there for 4 days and you have to survive.
Yeah.
But there is no equivalent. There's nothing like that. So you just sort of go through the stage without acknowledging it. And that to me feels wrong. It feels like, well, you should acknowledge it because it's key. Yeah. It's key to your development and to who you want to be as a character, as a person. Yeah. I think that these things are important. Like, I know it's coming back in a little bit more now, marking a girl's first period by doing something with the mum and having a ritual. And to me, it feels like something to be honoured. Yes. And I think the same with boys.
Absolutely.
When you start to become a guy, then it should be honoured. Like, this is an amazing human being coming through. So yeah, I'm all up for making those spaces for young ones as well. It's not my calling specifically, but totally support anyone who's doing that work.
Absolutely.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think time here for a shout out to two projects that I know are happening for youngsters at the moment. One is the Period Project, which is run and organised by a woman called Emily Stewart. And the other is Wildwise, again here in Totnes, which are offering either 6 or 8 month camping trips. So 1 weekend every month or so. One for young boys, like I think it's 12 to 15, something like that. And one for young girls. And the boys' one obviously held by men, the girls' one held by women, and it's not specifically an initiation journey, but it's just like, let's spend time with the guys. What's here? What skills can we develop? How can we move into manhood in like an acknowledged way? And for the girls, how can we move into womanhood in an acknowledged way? So yeah, it is happening.
That's great. That's really good. Yeah. And it reminds me of like the Native Americans. There was a whole thing of, don't forgive my non-specificness, but children were born to youngish parents, maybe in their early 30s, but then the grandparents would take care of the children mainly because these adults were in their prime and they were then going out to do whatever business they had to do or work they had to do. So there was more of a community feel to what was going on, and I do think that's lacking now. You can't just be educated by your peers.
Yes.
It's silly. So yeah, I think great, loads of room for that kind of work to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and also lots of space, it seems, for grandparents, as you say, to come in with a wisdom sharing, caring role in the upbringing of our children. Yeah, there's a real gap there, it seems to me. Yeah, and quite how to fix that. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because we're so mobile geographically now that, you know, my kids are 14 and I'm already thinking, like, if I want to be an active grandma, nan, whatever, then I'm probably going to need to move to wherever they are. And what if they're in different places? How will I manage that? But, you know, there's a real yearning in me to be available in that way, so that I can allow my kids and their partners to go off and give their gifts whilst they're in their prime, and I can fulfill that role of just, you know, taking up the slack for them.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I will mention as well that I had a call with both my sisters that we did on Zoom, which is like Skype, the other night, and it just makes such a difference. I know, you know, technology gets a bad rap, everyone's got their head in the screen, but if you do live far away, then you can get so many people on the screen all together, and it's like you're in the same room.
Yes.
And that eye contact is so key.
Absolutely.
So key, because you can really start to then feel into someone else's response and the dynamic between you in a much more nuanced way than you can on the phone.
Yes.
And I just really loved that. We all loved it. We're like, okay, let's do this once a week.
That's brilliant.
Stay connected.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's made me, because I've been thinking recently that I need to connect with my brother more, because he's a long distance away, and we've both kind of fallen into that more easy way of like, it's too far. But yeah, like I Zoomed him a couple of times over the last month, and it's like, this is really cool. It's like being in the same room with you. So
it really works.
Yeah.
And it's free.
And it's
much.
free.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
It's wild.
Like,
it's
I
really
remember
wild.
This is probably going to seem so weird to the younger generation, but you know, when the internet started to arrive and all this stuff was free, you know, free information, free ways to communicate with people, free Facebook profiles. I was like, free phone calls. I was like, what's going on? They're hooking us all in, and then as soon as we're in, it's going to cost loads. But like, no, it's just free. It's phenomenal.
It is. It's amazing. We're so rich. We've got so much.
Isn't that true?
So much available to us.
Yes.
And we can use it in line with our intention.
Yes.
For, you know, we can use it for good, for sure.
Yes.
Especially in terms of connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It requires a lot of discernment to stay to your path through all this information and connectivity, rather than be distracted by, I don't know, games and shiz. Not that there's anything wrong with games, but you know.
Yeah.
Distraction.
Yeah.
Wowzers. So, let me ask you one more time. I know before it was like, actually no. But, is there anything in the world that's really pissing you off at the moment? Or a big issue that gets your juices flowing, that you want to contribute to in some way, something you want to rant about?
It takes quite a lot to make me rant, I have to say. I suppose the closest thing to home is education based.
Right.
And it's the kind of inability and unwillingness, and I know that it's through funding, and I know that, you know, they only have so many resources, but of the schools to deal with my children like human beings,
right?
Rather than just crowd control.
Yeah.
And that does irritate me.
Yes.
It really does irritate me. And I understand also how it's difficult for my boy, who's the only one at school now, where he's been brought up by someone like me. And then he has to toe the line at school where I'm going, you don't have to do that, it's fine. And then he gets in trouble for it. So it's slightly like,
yes,
a little bit difficult.
Like two worldviews conflicting.
Yes, a little. And I think we found a happy medium now, where he knows what makes him happy, he knows the things that he wants to pursue, and he knows that the rest of it is a system that's pretty much broken.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have any solutions, but I think the first thing I would do is I would mix up the age groups.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't have like 35 11-year-olds, 35 13-year-olds. I'd mix it up.
With the intention for the older ones to mentor the younger ones and
yeah, definitely. And I've seen that work on a small scale in a couple of schools that my daughter was at, where the little ones who just started school have a special friend who is like one of the oldest ones in that school. Right. They take care of them. And then when she moved up to her next school, the same thing happens. You get a sixth former who you can talk to if you don't want to talk to your tutor.
Brilliant.
It is brilliant. And I think you could go one step further and you could just mix up. You could mix up the classes.
Yep.
And you could work in groups, or you could just... Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I'd organise it, but I just feel that there's something so fundamentally broken about our school system.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for kids, you know. You see the depression, the anxiety. They're like, what are we going to do? We don't know. We don't know ourselves. We have got no clear path.
Yeah.
You know, it's something needs to happen. Something needs to change.
Yes. It seems like our education system is set up for producing the workers that would have been needed in the last century. Yeah. But it's not set up for people who need to be dynamic and responsive to the very rapidly changing environment that they'll find themselves in a few years' time.
That's true. And the fact that they can travel and work from wherever they want to. Again, you know, the quick change. So the idea that you are responsible for what you do, and in order for it to flow, for you to find that flow, you need to know who you are.
Yes.
So you need to know what is the thing that makes you tick, what is the thing that is your gift, what is the thing that you are drawn to. Yes. And I just don't feel that they go anywhere near that place in school.
My daughter was talking to me the other day and saying, this masculine feminine stuff, Mum, you really need to get it into schools. Like, you know, a whole class set around masculine and feminine dynamic and how they work together and how that relates to like real life and stuff. Yeah, finding that thing inside yourself that you really want to give to the world.
Yeah, because they're not going to go and be employed for the rest of their lives until they retire. Yeah. It's not how it works anymore.
Yes.
So it's not fit for purpose anymore.
And also it's going to change rapidly in the next 20 years. You know, there'll be hardly any jobs that a AI or whatever could do. You know, which is going to mean there's a huge gap between what we see in existence now and what will be needed then. I heard someone talk about it the other day in terms of, you know, in the past there's been a feeling from workers that they are oppressed. And in the future there'll be a feeling from maybe not even the workers, but, you know, the general population that they're irrelevant, obsolete. Yeah. So what do we do then?
I can see that. Interesting.
Yeah. Good stuff. So does that feel like a good place to close for today?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Me too. I've loved this.
Yeah. Excellent.
Is there anything you want to just tell people at the end, the title of your book, your website, do all that stuff again, any Twitter, Facebook account, so that people know where to find you?
Yeah, sure. If you want to find my stuff, I do a lot of writing online. I do pretty much daily written posts. So you can go to Sunshine Yoga UK on Facebook. What else? Or if you go to my website, all the links for the book, for everything else is on there. That's sunshineyoga.co.uk. And that's where you can find anything to do with me.
Good stuff. So yeah, go and check Jemima out. For us, we're going to be having a crowdfunder set up very soon. So check that out, because at the moment we're using this beautiful studio for free. My production assistant is giving her time practically for free. We need some equipment to get these videos uploaded in less than 3 days, which is what it's taking at the moment. That's after editing, just to get it on YouTube. My computer's going like for 3 days to get it up there. So yeah, check out that crowdfunder. Please support me if you feel inspired to. with this video, like, share, subscribe. Like, really subscribe. We went from 3 subscribers to 8 overnight after the last one came out. So it's like tiny numbers, but like 150% increase. So let's see if we can keep that going. It's a massive target, but let's see if we can do that. All right. So yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time and your attention and your interest in all these conversations that we're having, this dialogue that we're having with people. It's an amazing thing to be able to do with all this modern technology. Over and out. See you next time. Loads of love. Bye bye.